Okay, I've had a few suggestions now to read one of my poems out loud or begin reading them out loud and upload them to YouTube. So this is me losing my YouTube posting virginity, and I call this poem Nothing Remains Unspoken. I write you this poem not knowing if you'll read it. Given all that's happened, I don't know you'll believe it. Yet I can't move through this without being true to myself. It's been such a long journey together back to health. I didn't just say mine because I see how you've also grown. As I write this to you now, I know that you wish to be alone. So I write it without knowing when I'll get the chance to share it. You may think me crazy, but somehow I still think we can repair it. Although, repairing isn't really the most accurate verb, because despite the pain, I see glimpses of something superb. Don't stop reading, I know what you're thinking. How could I possibly think that? Have I been drinking? Repairing it seems to imply restoring it to how it was before. I think this is to hold on to a past, not seeing what may be in store. I don't think it needs repairing because I don't think it's broken. One thing seems for sure though, and that is that we left so much unspoken. Yes, there's been much pain and we've endured many struggles. Yet have we not also been slowly expanding our individual bubbles? Have you not learnt to be more accepting of others? Did we not grow closer even when we weren't lovers? Is it not true that I've been desperately trying to understand my compulsions? Can you really not see how I've been growing despite my convulsions? Look at where I've come to and what I've become prepared to leave behind. Can you really not understand what I've had to work through in my heart and mind? Once my friends would never have believed I would stop drinking or doing drugs. Yet I did leave both behind, and I can't overstate the importance of self-hugs. By which I mean I needed to learn self-acceptance whilst exploring. It took me some time to get to the roots, and it didn't help to be ignoring. Now here I am, many parts of me growing to this point in time. It's been a difficult journey, with much of it being an uphill climb. Yet here I am, ready to leave behind both sex and my vain self-image. Yet I had to work through so many things before these would naturally diminish. So many parts of me had to develop to this point. I know on this journey many times did I disappoint. I know that you feel you've been collateral damage, and I can see why. But parts of us have been developing as parts of us have had to die. Take a minute to think about all of your previous concerns. We've made many choices and taken many turns. When we met, I was unaware of how much steroids were affecting me. In many ways, my spiritual journey had simply been disconnecting me. My sleep was awful and I was incessantly horny. My intellect was disconnected and couldn't really inform me. Yet even now, after a relatively bad night's sleep, I'm significantly less rough and less likely to weep. Going back and forth to hormones has shown me I sleep better without. Going back and forth to sex has slowly cured me of all doubt. I found it progressively unfulfilling, becoming increasingly aware of energy wasted. A bit like drugs and alcohol, I've done it to an excess and many samples I have tasted. I've naturally been feeling more and more responsible for my effects on other people, although I'm well aware progress has been as slow as wading through treacle. I've learned that I don't want to cause upset for nothing more than a physical sensation. I've become ever more aware of how trapped I was in female objectification. As I became aware, I became increasingly distressed. It is so dehumanizing to think of women only as something to be undressed. This causes pain on all sides. It hurts me deeply too. Yes, I had to engage many a time and conduct many a review. It wasn't immediately apparent how I was changing over time. Parts of me had to develop before I was able to truly appreciate my crime. In many ways, sex has been my one remaining compulsion. Allowing myself to be distracted slowly resulted in repulsion. It's been a long time in the making, but there's simply no way back. The culminating realization has shocked me like a loving but painful smack. For like so many other things, this journey has been about getting to know myself. I'm beginning to see how deeply sex was intertwined with my mental health. I sought distraction in the most destructive way. It seems feelings of inadequacy drove me to betray who I really was all along. It's been taking me so long to really find my song. I'm beginning to see that sex and my self-image were compensating for feeling insufficient. I may be highly self-aware, but in this, my awareness was extremely deficient. I think that one reason I felt the need to engage in sexual conquest in recent years was because I'd been growing to a point I was less controlled by my fears. Which is to say, I've been growing in confidence. When I was younger, I felt full of incompetence. It was somewhat liberating to be able to do what I was unable to do earlier. Yet as I proceeded to enact this desire, I felt increasingly dirtier. Strangely enough, as I had become more confident in my own skin, my vain desire to be better physically began to dissolve from within. It's no coincidence I've had recent spurts of energy to learn and study. It happened only in times I had begun to heal from how I'd made myself bloody. Which is to say, energy from vanity and sexuality needed to be first liberated. I've subconsciously poured so much energy into them that from myself I was alienated. Not just from myself, but from life and from my potential. So you see, in a way this difficult journey has been essential. But don't get me wrong, that isn't an excuse or a justification. I wish only to convey my understanding through conversation. I am, of course, haunted by the decisions I've made and how they've hurt those around me. Yet uncovering how I felt about such things has been important to be able to leave them behind me. You see, one has to understand these things to leave them behind. To move past our limiting aspects, we must see with what else they're intertwined. For changing something tends to mean changing multiple. More is generally needed than simply saying, I am culpable. Self-growth is self-death. To create is to destroy. To know oneself, we must be prepared to discover what we avoid. So sometimes, you see, you need to understand old patterns to transcend them. If you don't know the things which unconsciously drive you, you're unlikely to be able to amend them. So where does this leave me? Let me put it like this. By exploring these things deeply, I no longer need to resist. For resisting desires with no appreciation for their source is, instead of understanding, to attempt to deal with yourself with force. I'm so prepared to give up sex that I'm ready to perhaps go without indefinitely. By stopping hormone replacement therapy, I may be choosing a lifetime of celibacy. Of course, it's likely I will regain some sexual function eventually, yet I make this choice now completely intentionally. Really, my stopping is a manifestation of how the old me is dying. By giving up sex and my vanity, I'm prepared to see that which is underlying. Well, really, I'm already beginning to see it clearly. Holding on to who I was making me weary. So with this in mind, I hope that I've made a degree of sense. Being true to myself is surely the best way to give recompense. So I'm happy to wait for you whilst you make peace with what's happened. I trust you to, in time, to see enlightening where you perhaps only see something blackened. In the meantime, I'll be working on embodying who I was all along. I just want you to know that to you, I shall always belong. Not in the sense of ownership, of course, but my heart remains yours. My soulmate, my twin flame, our love forevermore endures. So I'll leave you with something we spoke about not long ago. We spoke about individual processes that we did undergo. We grew as individuals as we grew somewhat apart. Yet during this process, we seem to be becoming one heart. The changes we've both been through seem to make us more compatible. Can you see this at all, or does it really seem completely insurpassable? For now, I can have faith you'll come to a similar conclusion. Our path isn't about rejection, but understanding and inclusion. So I've said my part and expressed my growing insight. Thank you for being, amidst much darkness, such a source of light. If you ever want to talk again, my door will remain open. For in my heart of hearts, I hope nothing between us remains unspoken.